I wanted to pull over and make this video because I was driving. I'm on my way to do a few things, and I just got overwhelmed by the goodness of God. I don't know what street this is. I don't know where I am, but I had to pull over because I was so overwhelmed I could hardly steer my car. Just the heat that came on my chest, the fire of God just came on me, and it just was overwhelming. The word that came to me was, if God said it, believe it. And I thought about that. And I thought about me, and I thought about how unworthy I am to receive anything from God short of death, and how he sees me as being useful, not because of who I am or what I do or the way I feel or any of those things. I am not a perfect vessel. God doesn't have any perfect vessels. If he was waiting for somebody perfect to use, he wouldn't be able to use anybody. So I just thank God, and I think about that word. And that word was, if God said it, believe it. God has spoken. So all we have to do is to come into agreement with what he said. And I think about it, and immediately when that word came, the enemy came immediately to take the word. He comes to steal the word. As soon as it's sown, he comes to steal the word. And so as soon as that word came, immediately I thought of how inadequate, how I was backslidden for 5 years, how I've been backslidden, how I was in this relationship with this man who was making a fool of me, how I was out of fellowship with God, how I was ashamed before my Father, how I couldn't even lift my head to pray, how I just was not worthy of the love of God. And in all of that, inadequacy and all of the sin and all of the shame, he was still talking. He was still using me. I was still being blessed. Everything was still happening. He wasn't looking at where I was. He knew where I was going. He saw where I was going, and he said, I'm going to still use you. I'm going to still use you. I'm going to still use you. I'm going to help pull you out of it. I'm going to pull you out of it. And I'm going to put you right back as if you never failed. It's like when a runner is running a race and he falls down. He gets back up where he fell and he keeps running. He doesn't go back to the start line. He keeps going and he finishes the race. I may have fallen, but I'm going to get back up. I'm going to get back up every time. I don't care what it looks like. I may have missed it. I may have not heard God right every single time. I may not say things right all the time. I may not get it right all the time, but praise God, there's tomorrow. Thank God for his grace. Thank God that while I was in sin, he died for me. While I was in sin, while I was yet in sin, while I was an enemy to God. I was an atheist. I didn't want to hear anything about the Lord. I went from being a Muslim to being an atheist. Didn't want to hear about God. Couldn't stand to hear it. Didn't go to church. Didn't own nothing. And while I was out here without even ever owning a Bible or without having a skirt in my closet, Jesus came to me. And he saw me worthy of being saved. And just that was enough for me to say, I'm going to serve him the rest of my life. No matter what it costs me, no matter who it costs me, no matter where I have to go, I'm going to serve him the rest of my life. If we had a revelation of how he saw us, we wouldn't fight over things that mean nothing. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. All that matters is that he saw fit to come down, wrap himself in flesh, take our punishment, die, get lifted back up. And he is now ascended and seated on the right hand of the Father, making intercession for us day and night. He's not going to die again for us. He did it one time for all sin. And for that, I am so grateful. I am so overwhelmed. Just that one word. I heard that and it felt like somebody hit me in the chest. And fire, it's just my car, I'm hot. My body, everything is hot. My fingers feel like electricity. Just one word from God. He didn't take away. He didn't call back what he called me to do. because I was sidetracked, because I was distracted. And all of that was because I didn't know my identity. All of that was because I didn't know who I was. So I allowed things that should not have happened. No child of God is comfortable in sin. I wasn't comfortable. I was tortured day and night. I didn't like to be by myself, because if I was by myself, I had to think about how awful I was. And, the Bible that talks about be still and know that I am God, I couldn't be still, because if I was still, I had to acknowledge that he's God and that I was not in his will, and I was walking away from him, and I was outside of the covenant. And I'm not going to get into all that, but I just want to say, no matter where you are, he still has a plan for you. You can't run far enough. You're not big enough to stop the plan of God on your life. You're not big enough to stop it. So just yield and surrender to it. Do it with joy. He loves you. His plan for your life is infinitely greater than any plan you could have made for yourself. Just the peace I have. Just the peace I have, all by myself. I am in this state by myself. I have no family here. I have some friends that I have made over a few months. But I don't get calls. I don't get any of that stuff. Because God is enough. When he took Abraham and told him, get thee from among your family and among your kinfolks to a land that I'm going to show you. And I'm going to make a great nation of you. When he takes you from all of that stuff, it's because he needs to separate you, to sanctify you. So don't resist him. Just go where he sends you. And I tell you, the ride is amazing. Y'all enjoy this Resurrection Sunday.